This talk is following on the previous one that you heard about the wedge and what's the reason for the wedge. And this one is very close to my heart because it gives goals to you, and it also helps you to go and set your parameters. In other words, where's on your farm? Where is the top of the S curve on your farm? And you've learned that the wedge represents the S curve, and you've learned that to the bottom of the first part of the wedge and where you get to the top is where you go in, and you went and determined what was the best height. So with desired farm cover, what we're going to talk about as a starting point is a massive tool to enforce farm cover discipline. So it is something I always talk about because I realize we don't enforce farm cover discipline, we're not going to use the wedge efficiency, and we're not going to get to the goals we want to get. Because the bottom line is that if you don't have a goal, then you're guaranteed not to get there. If you don't have a vision, you're also not going to get to that vision. So you've got to measure yourself. And the only really proper way to do it and to take responsibility is to determine where you are on the S curve. The reason why it's so important to have farm cover discipline and to measure yourself against the S curve where you want to be. If you're at the top of the S curve, that's when you're generating most of your root reserves. And if you want to generate most of your root reserves, that's when you put carbons into the soil. So when it comes to carbon sequestration or increasing your soils and your carbon, it's crucial to have farm cover. Otherwise, you're not going to increase your carbons. That's connected to fertility conversion, water holding capacity, everything. So it just has a massive effect on the overall picture. So if that's not motivation for you to have a farm cover discipline and to enforce it, then I don't know what will be. But it's to your advantage to have it, and we'll talk about it as we carry on. So desired farm cover is simply where you take your height, you take your actual height that you feel the top of the S curve is. Now, this will vary according to ryegrass or mixed pastures. So you must go, if you're in a mixed pasture, I think last time we did more of a ryegrass pasture when we did, let's take a bit of more of a mixed. The mix can be any mix. Maybe I'll look predominantly at a Lucerne system, but I never go to my clients and say, this is the right height and this is not. I say, let's work together and see what is the top of the S curve in this. So in the top of the S curve in mix, just for example, it's not written in law. You go and look in the pastures. Let's take, we go in at a height of 3,200. And we say our residual, our height out is 1,500. And this gives us a very important figure, 1,700 kilograms per hectare on offer. We then go and we say, listen, take that, what you're offering per hectare, 1,700 divided by 2, because we want the average of the what's on the farm. If you go to the wedge, I want the average of the line that you set. So we set here, we set through, like you saw in the previous video, the bottom we set on 1,500, the top we've set on 3,200. Now we want to know what's the average of this line that you've set here. That is your 850. So we then took the 850 and we added it onto our residual of 1,500. And we, in this scenario, which you went and selected, because you select the top of the S curve and the bottom of the S curve. So in this scenario, you've determined your desired farm cover is 2,350. So that is your first goal. And if you go to your wedge, we then said on the wedge cover, where are you against that? So I want both eyes to stay on the wedge cover, because that is the most crucial figure for you to compare yourself to the desired farm cover, which you've determined and you've set your own desired farm cover. Then you've looked at your desired, that's number 2. Then we'll go and work out a desired rotation from your desired farm cover. So desired rotation, you're going to work out according to your S curve. Okay, so how do you do that? You said you're offering 1,700 per hectare, and we want to know, let's just say your present growth rate is 53.9, then you'll divide your 1,700 by 53.9, and you'll get to your days rotation. You should be on your desired farm cover of 31.54 days. Obviously, you'll just round it off to on your own. So again, if you understand the S-curve and the connection to the wedge, and the connection to the wedge to your desired farm cover, then you'll know, but you've actually selected a rotation now based on the S-curve. And you selected the right height in, and you selected the right height out. So you are taking responsibility for the rotation. It's all about the rotation. All right. The next thing we will look at is feed demand. So feed demand is saying what growth do I need per day to carry my cows? And feed demand you first work out the stocking rate. And from the stocking rate, just to say you got 700, in this case, just a example, if you've got 735 cows and you've got 199 hectares, then your stocking rate will be 3.69. So then we want to take what is the maximum intake. We always use the maximum intake. We don't just use what we have to offer on the pasture, because as soon as you do that, you're not setting goals, and you'll just find the rotation will get faster and faster, and you'll just lose your farm cover. So once again, desired farm cover is setting a goal. Rotation to desired farm cover, in other words, how much you're offering per hectare per day, based on the S-curve. Then we've now gone and said, okay, we want to know what the best intake is in that situation. So we said feed demand, we said work out the stocking rate, which you've done, and then we've said let's use the maximum intake of that we can get. We work it out on NDF. So you can use your nutritionist to work out what's the maximum intake a cow can take in. In our case, we're using energy model, which I've developed over 30 years and tested it with many farmers to what the cow can do and where, and so very confident about it. So for example, if you go to the energy model and you've put everything in right, then you'll see that your maximum pasture intake is 13.5. You then, if you got enough food, then you'll go and place your 13.5 in here, in that, and push the system as far as the energy model is to maximum intake. Okay, so the feed demand, you go to the maximum intake. So for example, if your stocking rate is 3.69, then you times your maximum intake that that cow specific cow can take in to NDF. So it's nutritional. Then you'll get your growth rate required, in other words, your feed demand required to feed the cows. So when you work with feed demand, where you've taken your stocking rate, and it's important to work out your stocking rate when working out the feed demand. You've then gone and taken it and times out by your maximum intake of the cow on that type of pasture, the NDF of that pasture. You've then determined a feed demand. Remember, that's the growth required to feed your cows per day. So that's the feed demand. And then you can go and compare that and look what it looks like against your actual growth rate. And your actual growth rate you'll get on the actual weighted growth rate you'll get on your wedge. From there, you can go to the feed demand in 3 weeks' time, because you want to know where you're going and you want to think about where you're going to be in 3 weeks' time. And there you can go and have a look and say, listen, in 3 weeks' time, my cow numbers might have gone up, my NDF might have changed, and what is my actual growth rate required, in other words, my feed demand in 3 weeks' time look like. And then you can also just go and look at your predicted growth rate based on history and the season you're going into. Just in closing, I've found that when we're doing nutrition and doing liters, the guys with the best farm cover get the best liters. The guys with the best farm cover get the best money, profit per hectare. And it's quite obvious, because at the end of the day, it's actually very simple. We want tons, and you'll get your tons with farm cover. We want tons of quality. We want to utilize those tons, and we want to make the tons more economical as well by dropping costs. It's very simple. So the liters and farm cover are very much correlated at the end of the day. These 8 steps, I believe that when we come to the wedge and for farm management, is most probably, if you follow these, your success will increase dramatically. And wherever I start with new clients, they share this every week with the management, and they monitor where it is, and then questions get asked. Why are we under? Why are we above? What is the next steps to do?